first flight of the orbiter Discovery, and the shuttle has cleared the tower.
0. Hey, what's going on? Brett here. Welcome to the Health or High Water podcast. Hope you guys are having a great day. It is Tuesday. Somehow I always seem to forget which day it is and then finally catch up to him. We have Kat here. By the way, I'm going to give her an introduction. First off, what's going on, Kat? How you feeling today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Trip, if you want to give a couple shout-outs here.
Hey, first we want to thank our genetic partnership with Gene Planet. This made it really easy for us to program things. I want to give a shout out to our clothing sponsors, You Versus You, as well as the amazing oxygen pills from O2 Boost. You guys are changing the world with that. And as well as Kalevala Labs, guys. Make sure you guys are checking our supplement line and go get the book Health Profiling on Kindle and Amazon. And as well as thanks to these new viewers and new listeners, as well as the old ones. You guys have been making this happen. We're in season 2 right now. Really excited.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yes, it's a beautiful day. Let's jump right into it. So
Beautiful day.
I'm gonna. I mean,
it's freezing out.
Yeah, but it's still beautiful.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
You have to bring the optimism, right?
You're so right.
That's part of life.
I appreciate that.
Yes. So quick introduction. It's going to be super short. So I asked Kat. I said, "Is it Kat? Is it Katrina?" She said, "You call it whatever." It was like 4 different nicknames you went with. So she's a registered dietitian and functional nutritionist. I kind of want to jump right in. We here at Health or High Water, we've discussed a lot of different stuff. I mean, it runs the whole spectrum of nutrition, mental health, stress, trauma, workouts, genetics, you name it. One thing we love, and we've been doing a lot more of it, is nutrition. I want to start by getting a little bit of background about what you did. After you became a registered dietitian, tell me a little bit about your experience, what you've done so far.
That's a good question. Okay, so I'll kind of back up. So I changed careers. I did my first career in fashion, and that's what I thought I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I moved to New York City and hated it. I absolutely hated it. I got my dream job, quit / got fired after 2 months. And that kind of brought me to the world of nutrition. So I was super miserable living in my favorite city in the world, and I hated my life kind of. And so I started to take nutrition courses online, and I just fell in love with it. And I kind of was like, this is something I would love to maybe turn into a career, something I'm super passionate about. So fast forward, I got a second bachelor's degree in human nutrition from the University of Alabama, and then I got a master's degree, and then I, did my dietetic internship, which is a 9 to 12 month residency, essentially, that is totally unpaid, and you have to pay $10,000+ to do it. So that was a hard pill to swallow. But anyways, I did that, and I passed my boards, and then, here I am. So my first job was working in the ICU at Presbyterian St. Luke's Rocky Mountain Hospital for Children. So I was a pediatric clinical dietitian. And that was a really tough job. So I love kids. And when you're training to become a dietitian, when you're in that educational setting, it's really geared towards working in a clinical setting. So working in an ICU, doing tube feedings, TPN, that type of stuff. And I loved working with kids, but it was also a job that I could not separate my personal life from it. So I would bring all of that home, and, kids are super resilient, and some of them would recover really easily and some of them wouldn't. So I had trouble with that emotionally. So while I was there, I was working actually at PRN, which is essentially like part-time in the hospital setting. I also started working for a virtual private practice. And, I didn't stay, I stayed probably 6 months in the hospital. Just again, emotionally, I couldn't do it. And I during my time there and during my dietetic internship, which I did at Boulder Community Health, I really started to, grow an interest more so in like the preventative health aspect of nutrition. So I was working a lot with, acute care, like really sick people that would get admitted. I would spend a lot of time, when you're that young, that new, straight out of school, you get super nervous to go and educate someone on a heart healthy diet or whatever therapeutic diet it is. And so you hype yourself up, you go into your room, and you are the last thing they want to see. And so you do all this work, you do all this charting, you educate them, and then there's no way of following up with them until they get readmitted, which typically happens a lot. But, they don't want to listen to what you're saying because they're in pain. They don't want to be in a hospital. And so for me, it was like I went through all this schooling, went through, 7+ years of additional schooling and a board exam and a free dietetic internship to get to where I am. And it felt like I wasn't passionate about it. So that's what kind of drove me to quitting my job at the hospital. I mean, I give those people so much credit that can do that and stay in a hospital setting because it's really tough. But I transitioned to full time with the remote private practice I was working for, and I loved it. But at the same time, I felt kind of like it wasn't the most personalized approach. So I went from the ICU setting where it was kind of like, you have to see this patient because it's what the hospital protocol says. The patient doesn't care about what you're saying, and you leave. And then I went to the private practice setting, and people cared. But at the same time, there was a lot of frustration both on the patient's end and the practitioner's end because you do these interventions that I learned in school or what the evidence says you should do for somebody, with a heart healthy diet or with a histamine intolerance. And, you go by the book and then you chart on it, and that's that. And if you have clients that aren't seeing the results that they want to see, they're frustrated, and you're also frustrated. And as a practitioner, you're kind of like, what do you do? Right. And so that started a new thing in my brain where I was like, I want this to be more personalized, and there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a more personalized way of interacting with my clients and my patients and getting them the results they want to see. And so that kind of drove me to starting my own private practice and getting into the functional testing realm.
Amazing story.
Yeah.
That's what's kind of fascinating about that too is like, so you already had a career in fashion.
Yeah.
You say you thought it was your dream job
Yeah.
at that time? Okay. And then what happened with that? You weren't
well,
passionate about it?
I wasn't. It was, yeah. I mean, it boils down to passion and the fact that I'm a very passion-driven person, and I like to feel like I'm feeling rewarded in my role, and I'm also making a difference. And, not to get too in the weeds with that, but I got, again, what I thought was my dream job. And I was just one in a million. There's a bunch of people that want to work in fashion. They move to New York City, the dream, you get paid nothing. You are literally a number. I mean, that's at least my experience. And it was really frustrating for me and for my boss. Like it was kind of a mutual, like, Katrina, you're not doing a good job at all. And I was like, I hate it here. And I left. No 2 weeks notice. It was kind of like, they were like, if you stay here, you'll probably get fired. And I was like, I will not like myself if I stay here. And so, it drove me to do a lot of soul searching too. Because I was just like, damn, I wanted to. Sorry, excuse me. I was like,
you can say damn.
Okay, that's good.
Put explicit on that.
So I had studied for however many years thinking I wanted to go into fashion, and then I did what I wanted to do, and in a second it was done. And I was kind of like, what do I do now? Like, what's the next step? And so, I started to just, like I said, I couldn't live in New York City without having a job. My dad was like, you have 2 weeks. You have to find a job. I'm not paying for you to live in New York City for free. So that lit a fire under my ass. And I, of course I could only get jobs that were in fashion. So I was kind of sidestepping, but at the same time, I was like, I need to do something that's going to light my passion fire. And that was a simple nutrition 101 course I took online because I was just interested in it. And then that blossomed into, oh my God, I love this. I think it's fascinating. I want to learn more. And it was something that I started just doing in my free time, was researching and learning more. And I kind of had this light bulb moment. I was like, this is like what it feels like to love what you do, right? And so I was like, I don't know why, but I just decided like, hey, I'm either going to do this or I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to keep like having a full-time job I hate and then doing something on the side I love. Like, why not make that into my actual job? And so here I am.
Yeah, what's really cool about that too is like, so there was a lot of routes you could have gone, right? You could have just went and got certified, right?
Totally.
It's so like inspiring kind of falls short of it, but it took, there's so many words that pop in my head. It's what a journey you had from there to go to become a registered dietitian. Takes an incredible amount of work and time and dedication and passion to go through all of that.
It was hard.
Yeah, and then to
really
go
hard.
through the residency.
Yeah.
And to do the clinician work, which is arduous and tedious and sometimes burns you out. Like you said, the hospital.
Yeah.
What a journey. And now you are into an entirely new realm now with what you are doing. So why don't we kind of like transition through? So now things have changed for you. Now you're your own boss.
I am.
You make your own schedule.
I do.
You decide your own protocol and approach and philosophy. Let's talk a little bit about that. There's a lot of nutritionists and trips, a nutritionist, and we've had a lot of discussions. What do you think not sets you apart, but what's your philosophy? What's your approach to nutrition? What's like the first thing people learn about you that kind of helps you differentiate you?
That's a good question. So I think, honestly, when most people find out that I'm a registered dietitian, their first thought is, she's the food police. Which, if anyone knows me personally, you know that is the farthest thing from the truth. I think the only thing on planet Earth I do not eat is rye bread, and that's simply because I cannot stand it. And I'm marrying a Jewish man, so it's kind of a point of contention. But like it's all about balance, and I am by no means the food police, and I think a lot of people find it very refreshing and approachable, because my whole thing is it's all about sustainability. So that's kind of like I don't know if I'd call it like a pillar, like a kind of a guiding principle I always work everything around. So really just thinking about it from a sustainability standpoint. Like if somebody comes to me and they say, I want to try keto, I want to try intermittent, I want to try X, Y, and Z, I always invite somebody to think about like, can you do this for a long period of time? And if the answer is no, let's focus our time and energy and resources on developing really strong, healthy habits that you can see yourself doing when you're 80 years old. Like, a big thing right now is carbs. Like, I'm going to eliminate carbs, which, don't even get me started on that. But you can call me Carb Cat. That's another nickname of mine, is I love carbs. But, can you see yourself 80 years old? Like if you're still able to travel at that age, like traveling in Italy, you're 80 years old. Are you going to avoid the pasta? No. And like, honestly, if you do, that makes me cry for you. Like that's really upsetting. So, sustainability is a big thing. I get a lot of feedback from my clients about how just like approachable, with the risk of sounding redundant, approachable my approach is, because it's all about sustainability, right? Now another layer of that, as I've briefly alluded to, is the functional testing aspect. So I mentioned when I was at the virtual private practice, I felt like it was kind of a Band-Aid approach to my patient's care. And by that, I mean, I was following a protocol, following what the evidence said. And if somebody didn't see results, it was, disheartening for the client or the patient, but also disheartening for me. So I thought there had to be a better way. And I started learning about this functional testing realm. So, the big thing in anyone who does functional testing, functional nutrition knows test, don't guess. Like that's kind of like the whole tagline there. And I started learning about this. There's a couple different ones I offer in my practice, but I think it is such a cool, personalized way to give someone a very clear picture on like what is going on in their body, understanding their specific nutrition needs, because that's going to look drastically different from person to person. Like your nutrition needs are not going to look exactly the same as your partners or your best friends or some influencers, and that's totally fine and normal and expected. So, but also it's like, how do you figure that out, right? So that's where the functional testing comes into play. And as I mentioned, I offer a couple different ones. HTMA, that's hair tissue mineral analysis. There is GI mapping, which is a really sexy stool test. And then there's Dutch testing, which is a urine test to look at your hormones. But my favorite is definitely HTMA, because that it's basically like an A1C for your mineral status. So like, fasting blood glucose is right in time, like what's happening right this second. A1C is a 3-month measure. HTMA is similar. So it's a hair test, and it looks at your mineral status, and minerals are basically like the spark plugs to make everything else happen in your body. So think about thyroid health, adrenal health, even mental health, like all that stuff, even how your gut works. So it's just such a really interesting, personalized way to say, okay, you do this test, we're going to look at what's actually going on in your body. Are you a slow metabolizer? Are you a fast metabolizer? What's your stress timeline looked like your entire life, and how has that depleted you? Or like what's going on? And that can dictate very specific nutrition interventions. Like me, for example, I'm someone who thinks, and this is a very long-winded way of answering your question, I realize that.
That's the point of the podcast.
We don't want short answers.
Hope
yes.
you guys are making a big breakfast right now, or a very long walk.
Yeah.
We love this stuff. This is great. Keep going.
So for me, I'm obviously a registered dietitian. I think I cross my T's, dot my I's, do all the things, manage my stress. But when I did this testing, I realized, just because I am a very high stress person, I try to do the things I need to do to manage it, but it's something that I deal with constantly, anxiety, that type of stuff. So that has impacted my body very seriously throughout my life. And it's like, I need to be adding sodium, potassium into my beverages, because I'm using it at a faster rate than someone who, isn't as stressed or hasn't had the same stress timeline as me. So that's the type of really personalized information you can get. And that's just one example.
Can you talk about that? What can you expand on that real quick? The sodium, you use it more often. Okay.
Yeah. So, with HTMA, it looks at, so it'll give you a classification in terms of your metabolism, right? So it goes slow, 1, 2, 3, 4, fast, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm a slow one. So it goes through metabolism, and then it also goes through your minerals, the actual ratios of all the minerals, like, because, nothing works in a silo in your body. It all works together. So it goes through that, toxic metals, that type of stuff. But for me, and I have my clients go through this exercise. It's kind of like a stress assessment exercise, where it literally looks at your life and then also now what's going on. So the stress that you've experienced your entire life, and also day-to-day stress. So like, are you allowing yourself to get into a parasympathetic state before you eat food? Are you eating on the go? Are you, packing your schedule full and you have literally no time to sit down and just like be? Are you constantly on your phone? Too much screen time? That type of stuff. So that type of stuff, because stress goes beyond just mental stress. Like, it's also that type of stuff. Not eating enough, going longer than 4+ hours throughout the day without eating something, that puts unneeded stress on your body. So that type of stuff, and like disordered eating, which I talk a lot about. I had my own past with that, and so that's kind of another big thing that drove me into this functional nutrition, just private practice realm. But because of how stressed, my chronic stress and my life of stress and current stress in my life, I utilize my minerals at a quicker rate. So if you look at my HTMA, I'm bottomed out on everything, which means my body has spent so long using this stuff super, super quickly. So I need to do more of an effort to add those things back into my, food, or eat mineral rich foods, add that stuff back into my, water even. And, it goes beyond. Stress is obviously a very, very crucial piece of the puzzle. And I think up until now, it's been something that a lot of people have just swept under the rug. Like, it's not something people take seriously, but stress is just one piece of the puzzle. Also, like, medication usage will impact your body's mineral levels and thus how everything else is working in your body. Also, modern agricultural practices. So, our food doesn't have as much minerals in it anymore. Our water is filtered. So there's a lot of things that contribute to this, and it's not necessarily always the individual's fault.
Right.
There's external factors, but stress is a huge one, and I know you were mentioning that kind of earlier in the podcast, but that's a big thing I work with clients on is stress. Did that answer your question? I know I keep just kind of like talking, and I know that's
that
the point.
answered it perfectly.
Yeah.
I think Trip wanted to interject.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're into this testing, quantitative results and whatnot.
Yeah.
We're very similar along those lines. We
Yeah.
parallel pretty awesome. So do you see that most nutritionists, most health professionals are going to start using testing, and where do you see the testing going in the future with this?
So I feel like yes. I'm encountering more and more practitioners that are just searching for some element of personalization, because again, it's like, yes, it's personalized to the point, like at least what I was taught in school, it's personalized because you're meeting the client where they're at, you're understanding what they're doing now, what their specific needs are, X, Y, and Z, but it's kind of like everyone's doing that. Like, let's take it a step further and differentiate ourselves even more. So I do feel like this is becoming more and more common, and it's gonna be one of those things that I think a lot of people are gonna need to adopt into their practice, because if you don't offer it, it's kind of like, oh, well, why am I paying all this money, right? It's like people really want to feel like they are seen and heard, and that what you're doing, it's not just this Band-Aid you're slapping onto every client. They want to feel like this is kind of a concierge type of approach to their personalized care. And what was the second part of your question?
Where do you see it going in the future?
Ooh, I mean, sky's the limit. I mean, I probably have barely touched the surface in terms of what I can do and what's even offered. I mean, I know I've heard some rumblings about there's kind of these like full body scans you can get that will literally pinpoint. I think Kris Jenner may have gotten one for her like 60th birthday or something. Those scans where you can literally like, I'm sure you got to pay for it, right? But like really understanding what is going on in your body and really tailoring your nutrition, your exercise, your stress management, your lifestyle to all these things. And again, I think I've barely scratched the surface because there's a lot of stuff out there.
Is the computer, by the way, just want to check, we're still good, right? It's
Oh,
just
yeah,
your
it's just-
screensaver.
It's just trying to take a nap, Brett. Let it do its thing.
Yeah,
It needs a break.
it needs a mental health break.
Why did I think I thought of this? You were talking about like the body scan.
Yeah.
I was thinking about health is on the rise, right? We've seen this big trend, like it's growing, right? Like exponentially. It's so funny. You've seen these ice baths that you can buy.
Oh my gosh.
I tell people, you literally could turn on the shower for zero. I mean, it might
Yeah.
cost like 3 cents, but
Yeah.
and you could do that. But the people are going out and buying like these $5,000 ice bath things.
Yeah.
Like there are natural remedies for all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's crazy to see people trying to reinvent the wheel all the
Oh, for
time.
sure. It's funny you bring that up too, because my fiance, he
Uh-oh.
just got real. No, he didn't buy one. No, he didn't. You weren't just like shitting on him. But he just got really into. We just joined a gym that has an ice bath. They don't have it available for women, which is something
What?
I've spoken to them about. But they, it's in the
Blatantly
men's locker.
sexist.
Savage.
Blatant.
I've written in a few times about it, even though I run super cold and I think it would take me my entire life to warm up from an ice bath. But I'm learning all this stuff about how that's great for your mental health, your physical health, and so I want to try it, right? But I'm trying to do the cold shower thing, and it's really hard.
I picture your cold shower as very lukewarm.
Yeah, I'm trying. Trust me, I'm trying. But it's again, I've run really cold. I mean, I came in here with my fur jacket on, and my hands are like icicles. But
yeah, it is fur.
yeah,
Look at
it
that.
is fur. Yeah, but no, I think it would take me truly an entire lifetime to warm up for one of those things. But I know they're great for you. But you're right. People are trying to reinvent the wheel here.
People try. Oh, yeah. Good segue. So you talked about. It sounds like your service is nutrition is like feels like it's a part of it. I feel like the service you described is so much bigger. Like this, you're expanding into this wellness realm.
Yeah.
Tripp and I have working with the clients that we've had this experience and we've talked about these nutritional conversations and realized there's so much mental progress that people need to make of like reframing that, right?
Totally.
That's got to be a huge thing of what you do, right?
Oh my gosh, unlearning the diet culture BS that people grew up with. I mean, that's honestly one of the first things that has to happen. Reframing people's minds and understanding that food is fuel and that's how you need to think about it versus, I do a lot about nutrition by addition, and that's another. Sustainability is a huge part of my approach, but nutrition by addition is another huge part. So like focusing on what you can add to your plate to make it really rounded, really balanced, make you full for longer periods of time versus focusing on what you can restrict from your plate, which I think is something that, again, like I'm a 30-year-old female, like growing up, that was like the thing. What do you take off your plate? Let's eliminate entire food groups. Let's not eat sugar. Let's not eat carbs. Let's not do X, Y, and Z. And so it is a big part of what I do is unlearning that, teaching people like what's actually true. Let's debunk some of those nutrition myths that maybe you learned from some random influencer on the internet or even from your mom. Like
Yes.
we love our parents, but that's a big kind of trauma point with most of my clients is I grew up with this. My parents, my grandma, whoever it is, makes unsolicited comments about this still, and they're called the almond moms. Like you're hungry, just have an almond. So yeah, which is yikes. But yeah, it's a lot of unlearning and essentially like building a new foundation of nutrition beliefs and strategies and kind of foundational basics that people can build onto. So we really like get back to basics. The basics work the best. They're not sexy. And I have a lot of clients that we have to really massage this topic. They want, I love when people bring me, fat, like myths and things, and they want me to talk to them about it. But at the same time, it's like, you gotta realize like, if you are not like, if you're running on cortisol because you're not eating enough, if you're not eating even a fraction of the amount of protein you need to be eating, if you're not getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night, if you're not drinking water, if you're not doing those things, like no supplement, no quick fix, nothing else is going to work. You have to have a really strong foundation and you have to mentally like not be self-sabotaging yourself, because that, again, like stress, that's another form of stress. If you in your mind are telling yourself that you're not good enough, there's like you're having difficulty eating carbs because of what your mom told you growing up, or like because you were damaged by going to Weight Watchers when you were in 6th grade or whatever it is, that has to be the first thing we work on. Or like none of these other interventions, more complicated interventions that we're going to do, it's not going to work, because ultimately your mindset has to be in the right place. You have to know the why. That's another big thing for me, is knowing the why behind your food choices. And I mean, as a dietitian, I care way more about the intention of what you're eating than what you're actually eating. So if your intention is disordered and you're eating the salad because you think the salad's a healthy thing for you, but you really wanted the burger, like have the damn burger. I mean, it goes beyond the mental state. It's also, there's a lot of fascinating research around if you don't actually like mentally want to eat something, your body's not going to absorb as many of the nutrients from that food. So it's just like, have the damn burger. Yeah. Eat the ice cream. Like, but think about the why behind it. And, you gotta unravel a lot of these myths. And yeah, to answer your question again, a long-winded answer, but yeah, I do a lot of unlearning of that stuff that people grew up with.
I just kind of segue off that too, is I want to know your opinion on people demonizing macro groups, right? So this is one of my favorite things to talk about too, because some people are like, no, you got to cut carbs to make that super nice hot summer bud, and you got to cut the fats out. Great time to take a drink. But at least with us, like we're trying to do a balanced lifestyle. You need fats for your myelin sheaths. You need carbs for cognitive function.
Yeah.
You need protein to build muscle, and use as a high energy source later down the road. So how do you feel about people demonizing these things down the road? Especially all over social media, and how do you combat that with people like, well, I'm not supposed to have carbs. I was told.
It drives me insane. But at the same time, I also know that I went to school for a very long period of time, and I sometimes take for granted what I know. And so it honestly comes down to like, people don't know. They're confused about what to eat. There's a lot of misinformation and muck out there. And so they're just trying to navigate it the best way they know how. And so it typically, for those type of patients I have, clients, patients, whatever you want to call them, it's a lot of education. So, example, I have one client that just came in, new diagnosis of prediabetes, and she did have that mentality. She's like, I know I'm not supposed to eat any carbs. I'm not supposed to whatever. And I was like, that's actually not true. Like, your body needs at least 150 grams of carbs per day just to function. For your brain, like, that's your body, your brain's number one source of fuel. You need carbs. Okay. And anyone who tells you otherwise, like, I don't think you should listen to them. You need carbs, right? So it's really a lot of education when people come in and they're demonizing certain food groups or certain macros. It's just getting down to the science of it and explaining in a way that meets them where they're at, why that's not, necessarily the best route. And, like I said, I educate people, but ultimately if somebody, I've had a few clients who they're like, I want to intermittent fast, women, females my age, so 30-year-old range, and they decide they want to intermittent fast. And I give them all the facts about how, hormones, cortisol, X, Y, and Z, what the research says, and how it probably isn't the best route for you to take. Right. And they still decide they want to do that thing. I'll let them do it. And then typically 9 times out of 10, what happens is they come back 2 weeks later and they say, that sucked. That was not sustainable. I feel like shit. Let's try it your way. And so I always
almost like you know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Like, yeah, I don't know. It's almost like I studied this for 8 years and have as a master's degree and passed a board exam, and like this is literally my life. So yeah, it's a lot of education, but again, I think that's a really important part of a piece of the puzzle here to make sure people have a strong foundation. They're not just blindly saying, okay, Katrina, I'll do that. Like, you got to know why. Because that will help when, inevitably you have some like blips in the road, and it's not a linear path. If you feel like, oh, mentally, my mom's saying, she's doing Atkins or cutting carbs for Christmas and she's being good and not eating bad foods, like if there's a part of you that says, oh, maybe I should do that too, then you just think about our conversations, the education behind it, and just the why, like why that's actually not the right thing to do. And oftentimes that can kind of help you when times get tough.
Yeah, no, well said. Quick check, Trip. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're good.
I about 10 minutes left.
Wanted to breeze through body image issues. I think that plays a huge role. This is sort of a little bit of an adjacent conversation to what we just discussed. It's sort of a loaded question when you're trying to change these diet habits of somebody who's been doing it for 30 years. It's, especially for women, I feel like I always empathize with women because I feel like they have it much tougher than men do as far as like what we expect, what society expects of you. People have body image issues, and they're trying to figure out their nutritional thing. And I mean, I even lost this question, but to me, it was just like, I've had these conversations a lot with people, and when the light clicks and you have these conversations with them and they're like, oh, I feel like I'm making progress on this. Do you feel that moment too, where you have those victories? Yeah. Do you feel you have like moments in your mind where you're like, this client, it made sense for them? Yeah. I get it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yes. Like when I have, because everyone learns differently. Everyone's learning style is different. Everyone's starting place is different. So I have some clients where, not to say it's easy, but it's like easier to communicate that, and they kind of get it. Not to say that it's they get it and they're good. A part of the education is always saying, especially with body image stuff, like it's one step forward, two steps back. Like it's not going to be a linear road. You're going to have days where you don't feel so hot about your body. You're going to have days where you feel awesome. And nothing really changed besides your mental state, right?
Yeah.
Like you're in the same body, like nothing really changed.
Yeah.
But I do have some clients that it's still, we've been meeting for years and it's still something we have to work on. And not to say like, I feel like I personally have come a long way in my own health journey. It's not to say I never have bad body image days. Like it's going to happen. But I think the most important thing that I try to communicate and teach my clients with that is learning how to recover from it and not self-sabotage. So if you do have a bad body image day, you don't just say, F it and like just go balls to the walls and you have this all or nothing mentality. Like you just say, okay, I'm having a bad body image day. You label it as such and you keep eating your protein, you keep eating balanced meals, you keep doing all the things that you do. And then usually the next day you wake up and you're like, yeah, I look good. Like I feel good. So it's most importantly, in terms of longevity and sustainability too, it's learning how to overcome that and kind of like understand that that's just that doesn't dictate you as a person. It's like literally just your mental state. And it's a struggle that you will likely deal with for years and years. But it's a muscle in your brain. Like any other part of your body, it's a muscle. You have to constantly keep flexing, and eventually it gets easier and easier for you to understand this is just one day. It's not dictating my life, and I shouldn't allow that to just make me get into this dark place where I let go of all of my healthy habits that I've established. Like you have to bring it back to that, and that's a big part of it, huge part of it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too comes from comparing ourselves with other people.
Oh yeah, comparison trap.
Yeah, I actually mentioned you earlier. I can't remember who I was talking to today, and I was like, if I try to get abs like Tripp has, I was like, I said I could do it. 100%. If you gave me, I could do it. I said it's not sustainable for me.
Yeah,
I don't have the genetics to support that regularly. So, and we get a lot of clients coming into us that have these like kind of ideations where they're like, I want this body type. And how I always say it to them is I say, let's let your body find its natural body weight.
Oh yeah.
I don't care if you're 23% body fat. I don't care if you're 12% body fat. There is an ecosystem or like an equilibrium of where your body wants to be at.
Your set point. Like,
yes.
Yeah, your happy weight.
Your happy weight.
Yeah.
And some of us don't have abs. In fact, I would say the majority of the population should not have like ripped core, but there's this cultural thing. By the way, you do have a great core.
Thank you. Thank you.
And yes, as you can tell, I am jealous. Maybe if I stop eating so many pancakes.
Cut your carbs, man.
Yeah, cut him out.
So
JK, don't do it.
I have to talk to you about this, both of you guys about this. I got an email from a different gym. I'm on one of their, I don't know how I got on their email list, and it says you can drink Diet Coke and still it's all about calories in, calories out. I get what they're saying, right? If I want to lose weight, I used to wrestle way back in the day. I get it, eat less. But I'm thinking, how toxic is that thought process? How sustainable is that to think about weight loss in a sense of that? Does that hit you at all? That, when you hear that upsets you as much as it does me?
Yeah, because it totally just it doesn't even consider the fact that, okay, bioindividuality, that's one thing, but also like that people are like, if you bring that message out into the world, the people that resonate with that, they're only going to think about food as a number. They're like, and food brings us so many things. It brings us joy. It's fuel. It's joy. It's memories. Like food. I love food. Clearly, I'm a foodie. Yeah, but too. Like, if you're looking at it as calories in, calories out, like that creates such a disordered mindset. Because you're only thinking about it as numbers. And I think that's a lot of the like ex Weight Watchers people that I have worked with. They're like, well, this thing has X amount of points, so I can eat it. And it's like, I can't even think off the top of my head, but they're always thinking about it as numbers. Like, and I'm thinking about it as, is this going to fill you up? Is this going to satisfy your needs in the current moment? Is this going to align with your goals long term? Like, those are the questions you should be asking yourself, not, does this fit in with my point system, my caloric system? And like, I cannot go. And like, if you're going to not eat fruit because fruit has more calories than like a diet soda.
Yeah. That's
Like,
that's
what,
exactly,
in what world does that make sense?
That's what some of these people are preaching. And I get so upset by seeing this.
It's upsetting. It's incredibly upsetting.
You know what it's doing to their mental, their long-term status. It's like, hey, let's hit this 6-month goal and let's not worry about the year, the 5 years, the 10 years. I hate it.
I hate it so much.
Well, and two, you're also letting them accept that bad habit is okay for them, and that could be the one thing that's keeping them from their goals to begin with. I mean, aspartame's 200 times more sweet than sugar. It's more addictive, and like, them saying that that's okay is just such a disservice to those people that might be struggling with soda addiction. That's such a huge thing. People are just addicted to that stuff, addicted to the caffeine, addicted to the sugar. Yeah. And then telling them to be like, no, it's okay if you do it in moderation, which these people typically have a problem moderating to begin with.
I don't want to. There's a term therapist right now that society has when they hear the term therapist, they have a general idea of what that kind of means. I'm not sure if you would consider yourself a therapist, but I am just going to tell you, you 100% are. You have this,
therapy.
You 100%. You have this knowledge, and really, I think what you're doing is you're helping people to reframe the way that they visualize themselves and what food is.
Yeah.
Right. And that, in a sense, so there's a kind of a stigmatization of these words, right? Therapy. I've noticed also you use the term disordered eating. I've heard it the other way. Is that industry standard? Is that something you started using?
Well, no, it is something like disordered eating and eating disorders. There's kind of a fine line that differentiates the two. So, eating disorder is more so, a clinically defined anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder. There's plenty of other names for it. Disordered eating is, I would say it's like, and I'm not sure if everyone agrees with this, but I think it's kind of like you're dipping your toe into the eating disorder realm. So the way it looked like for me when I was growing up was, I was counting everything that I put in my body. I was over-exercising. I was under-fueling. And I got intense, social anxiety when I would go out and I was maybe at a wedding or at a social event and I wasn't sure what they would be serving there and how it would fit into my day. And I would not deviate from that. And it was, I think, different. It was not like an anorexia type thing because I was still like, I need to eat. But I don't want to deviate from my numbers because that is going to, and it goes back to your thought about the unrealistic expectations and the comparison trap. And yes, when I look back, I think in that time period, I had my quote unquote dream body, but it was a nightmare to maintain. So now I don't track a single thing. I look at protein only because I know if I don't have enough protein in a meal, I'm starving. So it's mostly from, and I'm like, I'm regimented every 3 to 4 hours. I need my protein, but, I found that happy weight. I found that set point weight, and it's all just because I found balance and sustainability.
Love that. Well, you guys can't see listeners, but Kat's in fantastic shape.
Thank you.
So we're getting to the end of the episode. I want to thank you guys for joining us. We're going to bring you a lot of these conversations. This one was actually they're all my favorite, but this one, again, is one of my favorite. I think these conversations are important to have and really do make a difference. I want to pass it over to Tripp for final thoughts.
Yeah, so this is time you get to plug. You let us know where to find you or everyone else can find you. And then anything that you have too, we'll put in the bio or description of the podcast, and they can click right on it.
Perfect. Well, people can follow me on Instagram at dietitian.cat, and dietitian is spelled with a T. We'll put that in the bio. My website, www.kmdnutrition.com. And I'm always putting out free resources. I just came out with a free hormone imbalance symptom checker, free holiday recipe guide. You can always download those things. But yeah, really, I mean, I guess my final thoughts, my whole mission is really just to empower people with, a better understanding of their unique nutrition needs and help them heal their relationship with food, imbalances with their hormone, gut health, all that stuff. So thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. And some news for you guys listening right now. Our prices are going up drastically in the year 2024. Going up drastically in 2024. So if you guys want to still get on this deal for 2023, getting your genetic test, doing your blood work, biomechanical assessment, getting in some cheaper personal training programs, please reach out to us before the 1st because our prices are going up. So make sure you guys watch out for that. And then as well as look out for Adrian Bybee's Herculean Adventure that's coming out here February 12th through the 17th. In Costa Rica. So if you guys are athletes, former athletes, make sure you guys are going out there. We're going to get you all genetically tested. We're going to grow together. And then is there anything else we're missing here?
No, that covers everything, I think.
Okay, well, what an episode.
All right, have a great day, you guys. We'll see you on the next episode of Health or High Water. Peace.